The Flood Story from Mabel Cook Cole's Philippine Folk Tales in 1916. The Flood Story. This short flood story from Bukidnon, an indigenous people from the southern Philippines or in Mindanao. According to this story, the flood was not caused by any angry or careless deity, but by a crab. A long time ago, there was a very big crab which crawled into the sea, and when he went in, he crowded the water out so that it ran all over the earth and covered all the land. Now, about 1 moon before this happened, a wise man had told the people that they must build a large raft. They did as he commanded and cut many large trees until they had enough to make the 3 layers. This they bound tightly together, and when it was done, they fastened the raft with a long rattan cord to a big pole in the earth. Soon after this, the flood came. White water poured out of the hills, and the sea rose and covered even the highest mountains. The people and the animals on the raft were safe, but all the others are drowned. When the water went down, and the raft was again on the ground, it was near their old home, for a rattan cord had helped, but these were the only people left on the whole earth. As Cole points out, the raft with people and animals part of this story is rather similar to the story of Noah's Ark. It's possible that the raft or ark motif came from either Christian or Islamic peoples who lived near the Bukidnon and got worked into the Bukidnon existing folklore, but the crab motif is local. Regino L. Gonzalez Jr. Regino Gonzalez is born in Danau City, Cebu, Philippines. He is a chemical engineer, IT professional, trying to be a writer of inspirational stories, and now he is currently writing an educational module on Java programming for interested Philippine schools and universities. And some of his short stories are Silent Samaritans, Christmas Message from a Family of Stray Dogs. We are a family of stray dogs. My mother, my brother, and I. Mother gave birth to me and my brother on a roadside near a roof bus stop, far from any place where food is easy to come by for a stray like us. When I was still learning to fend for myself, I remember that mother leaves us in our birth spot at dawn and comes back before sunrise for us to suckle her milk. I came to understand now that mother then goes to garbage areas in far places where uneaten scrap of food were dumped by nearby household. I also learned that mother regularly visits her food vendor friends who give her a scrap of unsold food. For quite some time, I wondered why mother did choose to give birth to us far from where food can be found. I understood only lately that she selected a place where there will always be people. Our place, which we now call home, is always teeming with people from morning until late evening. Here, they wait for a bus to ride on, disembark from one, or just sit down in one of the benches to rest. When late evening comes, there will be fewer of them and fewer vehicles passing, and we can sleep in peace, shielded from occasional raindrops by the bus stop's roof. I and my brother are now in our 3rd moon and we have learned a lot from mother. When she is hungry, she just sits still and smiles pleadingly at people. Passers-by with food packed in paper bags spare her some almost without fail. I have never seen mother growled in anger, and she has never engaged in a fight with anyone of our kind. Like some I saw a few times across the highway, with mother's quiet guidance and example. We grew up emulating her, living without fear, not much want, and being friendly with people. Our days of youth were days of learning and fun. I like observing moving objects and people. I am always amazed at objects that move faster than we can run on land, and carrying lots of people and those that float and move on the air without wings, that flap like that of the birds. I guess these objects carry people too. People from across vast spans of water and mountains. My brother spent more time exploring the surrounding grounds. When we are not hungry, Mother, my brother, and I spend our time playing around our little space. Of people, Mother taught us that they are generally kind. At least those who drop by our place, the bus stop, show them respect and obedience, and they will respond with kindness and compassion. Even those with menacing countenance, some of them who regularly pass by our place have become our close friends. They always bring food for us. Few of them pat my forehead while feeding me, a pleasant delight I always look forward to. On my way, I discovered few things about our people friends, except for rare occasion when I discern happiness. Most of the time, I sense sadness in them. My cunning intuition enabled me to feel their inner struggles, the burdens of living born in their hearts and minds. As most of those who are close to us are the sad ones, I now understand that our Maker gave us an important task of providing them solace while on their way to discover the Maker's reason for their worldly existence. Unknown to most humans, we are endowed with the gift of giving back simple joys to those who care about our seemingly sorry state. As we cannot express ourselves the way humans do, we projected into the minds of their writers. Distinct image of our wishes for our Merry Christmas to all the compassionate caregivers, not only to our kind but all the living creatures. It is our fervent hope that they will soon realize the noble roles that the Makers has reserved for them. The second short story is Small People Das in Kapilahan. This short story is so simple and beautifully told. It's something we can really relate to. This story provides a glimpse into a life quite different than many live today. The sun was about to set in the mountain village of Kapilahan. A skinny lad wearily walked home, tired from a hard day's work, dragging basket of coal from the bowels of the coal mine to a waiting hauling truck. Steaming vegetable soup, followed by a wholesome bath of rainwater collected in earthen jars will be good, he promised himself. It did not happen. A flock of mother hens, trailed by their merry chicks, met him on a yard leading to his hut cackling for their favorite corn grits. Be patient, little ones. You'll have it in a minute. He forced a smile and rushed to the hut to scoop a bowl of grits from an open sack. He sprinkled the grits to the delight of his small chicks. Shortly, colorful, arrogant roosters raced into the feed of scattered granules, competing with chicks. They were timely. They regularly arrived at the sunset to feed after their daily wandering to scratch for worms at the edges of the nearby forest. You big guys, leave some to the little ones. He shouted, raised his hand in frustration, and went back to the hut to scoop more grits to satiate the flocks. The sun had completely hidden itself at the back of the big mountain when monsoon wind suddenly pushed dark rain clouds overhead. Rain-fearing goats, previously leisurely grazing on the lush, grassy plain, came bleating loudly near their shed. The lad understood their pleas and obliged. He opened the shed for them to shelter in. He smiled satisfied. He had done a full day's work and ready to indulge with the steaming vegetable soup that the old woman, his beloved aunt, normally prepared for him. It was getting dark and he was about to enter the hut when he heard porcine cries. Hot bodies and hard snouts started rubbing and thumping his legs. They have returned. He last saw them in the morning walking away with abandon for their daily search for edible root crops. God, the pigs have not been fed yet, he exclaimed and proceeded to prepare and fill their feeding through with the corn bran. Thus, and the lad thought he was finally finished his menial task for the day. The chicks were already silent, safely tucked underneath the protective wings of their respective mother hens. The arrogant rooster were perched on branches of the trees surrounding the hut. The goats were silent, and the pigs seemed to be snoring contentedly in their corner of the shed. They shared with the goats. Tasks are done. Now dinner, Never mind the steaming vegetable soup. We'll bathe later, he thought and walked slowly to the hut. His aunt was sweating in front of a hot earthen stove when he entered. With a small bamboo tube, he was busily blowing air into a wet firewood to keep the stove fires burning. She glanced to him and casually mentioned that the carabao is still relishing in the pond, and that it will be picked up in the morning by a farmer friend for plowing an adjacent cornfield. Jesus, there's no way finishing this task, he complained to himself and plodded to a foot trail leading to the muddy pond, the buffalo's favorite hangout. The meek beast reluctantly stood up and followed him after repeatedly hearing its name being called, and the gentle tugging of the leading rope launched to his nostrils. It was late when the lad sleepily ate his cold supper, a quick bath, and he slumped onto a rough burry mat with a soft cotton pillow. His drowsy eyes gazed through the open bamboo window, watching the twinkling stars. Sounds of a soulful ballad sung by a farmer celebrating the coming of the life-giving monsoon rains filled his ears and put him restfully asleep. This short story is a good reminder of how different life can be from what we are accustomed to. The third short story is Small Heroes Andy. A hero is not just someone who wears a mask, has powers, and saves the world. Being a hero is about endeavoring to make a difference in other people's lives, creating a ripple effect. I was standing at the shoreline and I could see it. Buzz, my neighbor and schoolmate, was drowning. Her head alternately rose above and sunk beneath the water. Her hand and feet frantically pushed the water down to keep herself afloat. Finally, I could only see her flailing arms. In the coastal towns of Danau in central Philippines, a picnic by the seaside was a popular way of celebrating the end of the school year. The affair is easy to organize and arrange. Senior students decide and announce a coastal venue, date, and time of assembly. Would-be participants would gather in group, buy cooked food and drinks in the town market in the morning of the appointed date, and join the rest of the time of assembly. The picnickers would then walk to the designated seaside spot few minutes away from the assembly area. Bathing in the sea was a normal part of the picnic and for attempt swimmer to teach their bodies how to float and swim. The learners were often tugged far from the shore using inflated interior tire tubes for floating support to condition them to control fear of deep water. Andy was an average student who just contented with getting passing grades. His parents owned a small convenience store close to the town market and were considered a middle-class couple by the town's economic and social standard. Tending the store and with six children going to school, Andy's parents had practically no time to care seriously about their individual educational standing or progress. Like almost every male student in our school, Andy played basketball and table tennis and swam regularly at the sea, but he was never known to excel in any game or activity. Paz was in a senior class in our school at that time. She was an above average student, a little bit on the plump side, and had a face that will never be wanting for suitors. Extroverted and a very good listener. Men friends liked to talk to and crack jokes with her. Living from the seaside for long, Paz never knew how to swim. She joined the picnic intending to learn it before she enters college. She could be attending college in the coming year in the city and would no longer have the luxury of time for a gradual learning process. In the picnic area, Paz joined group of 5 novices to be taught by a swimmer friends. The friend brought them to the deeper part of the sea by tugging in the floating support. Learning in the deep will develop their confidence and remove their fears, he said. True to his words, he successfully taught them how to float to keep their head above the water and to swim away from and back to the floating support. He then left them to test their courage and swam toward the shore. He did not foresee the dangers of the undertow, and little did the novice know about it. Paz noticed that she was drifting seaward farther away from the float. She pumped her legs and arms against the water to glide towards the float, but she kept drifting away. Then she panicked and forgot the proper arm and leg stroke to stay afloat. Now, in a state of terror, she did everything to keep her head above water, gasping furiously, then gulping seawater every time she sank below the water surface. She was drowning, and no one close noticed her predicament. Unsure of myself, I pointed to Andy what I saw, to which he just muttered, "Paz is drowning," quickly grabbed the float of one of the batters and swam swiftly, pushing it toward Paz. He reached her spot, waited for her failing hand to appear, and quickly grabbed and guided them to the float. Paz held onto it like a leech as Andy tugged it toward the shore. Paz was dazed and vomited a lot of seawater on the shore. When she regained her composure, Andy was no longer around. He swam back to the sea like nothing of significance happened. This story tells that there can never be too much beauty in this world. The simple act of kindness toward one's fellow human being will and is beautiful.